All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to another edition of the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell, and for the next hour, I'm your host and your guide as together we will cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday at 11 p.m. Eastern, right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. My guest this hour, X Zone Nation, is Dale Kaczmarek, and he is an investigator and president of the Ghost Research Society since its founding in 1977. And darn it, that cold is still with me tonight. By the way, thank you all for your kind suggestions, as well as some very strange and weird concoctions, but I'll stick to Buckley's for now anyway. Okay, as I was talking about our guest this hour, Dale Kaczmarek, like I said, he's the president of the Ghost Research Society since its founding in 1977 and author of a number of books. He's joining me now from, I believe it is Oak Lawn, Illinois. The website is ghostresearch.org. And Dale, welcome to the X Zone, and I apologize for my raspy voice and my cold tonight.
Oh, that's okay. I'm always glad to be on the show.
So let me see. How was Halloween for you guys this year? As busy as usual?
Believe it or not, because of the weather over here, it was not quite as busy as normally it is. I was able to do some investigating throughout October, and we still have a couple of things we have kind of on the back burner, so to speak, before our 2023 is over with.
Now, before we went on air, you were telling me that you went over to England and Scotland. Did you do any paranormal investigating while you were over there?
Oh, absolutely. There were several very interesting places that we went to. One called Langenhoe Church. It's basically just an empty field now. They have a sign, commemorating where this building edifice used to be. And well, we were using some what I call real-time devices. In other words, when we ask a question, we sometimes will get a response that makes sense, in direct response to our question. And we asked a couple of just ballpark questions like, how much of the church is left here? And there is none, basically. But the response was 0. And I go, well, that's pretty interesting, because it was telling us that there was nothing left of the church. We had went to a place called Bramber Castle. Again, a lot of these are kind of ruined locations that there's just bits and pieces of the building left.
Right.
And we got some very interesting things that happened when we were there. We didn't see anything per se. We didn't really photograph anything, but we were able to get some a few responses that I believe were intelligent responses, more so than residual.
And were these EVPs?
Yes, they were. EVP seems to be, at least in the way I look at it now, because I've been doing paranormal for so long, is probably the easier way to communicate with spirits. I mean, or at least to get an inkling that there may be something there. When I started back in the 1970s, we didn't have a lot of these devices to investigate with. We were just walking around with a 35 millimeter camera and a cassette tape recorder, and our EMF device was a compass. So you can see how far we've come since that time. And a lot of the initial things that I got back in the 70s were on film. We were shooting black and white, high-speed infrared film at the time, and we were able to capture several shadowy figures that were not visible to the naked eye, but did later come up on the film. And very little as far as any EVPs, which I kind of found that to be interesting, because now it's kind of the flip side of the coin. We seem to get more audio than we do video or still pictures.
That is very interesting. And Dale, for the listeners who may not have had the opportunity of hearing you the last time you were with us, how did you become interested in the paranormal?
Well, basically, it was I always want to say I kind of blame my parents and grandparents for this, because they always told me kind of spooky stories when I was a youngster, starting as early as 6 and 7 years old. I remember my grandparents who came from Poland told me some interesting stories up there about a bridge that people would come across, and they would see a lady sitting at the edge of the bridge, and the lady would say something, and it was usually a gentleman, again, that always kind of approached this apparition, if you will, and they said they needed somehow for them to cross over the bridge with them, but they couldn't walk over. They had to be carried across. And so they carried this, what they thought was a real person, across the bridge, set it down, turned around, and that person's gone completely. And I found it to be a very interesting story, because it kind of ties in a little bit with the legend of Sleepy Hollow and Ichabod Crane, where the ghost can't cross the water, but in this case, it was helped across the water. But now I've discovered, especially in the Chicagoland area, as a couple of the books I've written about Windy City Ghost, that a lot of these locations, and not just here in Chicago, but around the country, around the world, seem to be near running water. So it seems like the water kind of activates, if you will, or gives the ghost some sort of energy. The natural flow of running water seems to be something that energizes them or helps them be able to communicate either through EVPs or visual or audio or something of that nature.
So the water acts as a conduit?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. I believe it is. Not only that, but in some cases, limestone. We have a lot of buildings here in Chicago that are old buildings that are built of limestone. And for some reason, more buildings than not that have been built of limestone have some sort of activity in the past. In some cases, both the water and the limestone. There's a place we did our conference this year, which is a distillery, and there was a haunted underground artesian well. And the well, obviously, it runs 24/7, great tasting spring water, but the whole vault is of limestone, and there's been a lot of activity in that underground artesian well.
Has there been any scientific research done as to the actual cause when it comes to the limestone and the running water being the conduit for the paranormal?
No, and like I say, a lot of scientists, when you get into the scientific community, sometimes a lot of scientists don't really believe so much in the field that we're doing. Scientists very often would like to have things that they can be replicated under laboratory conditions, and ghosts are a very spontaneous thing. But I have surmised, especially with the limestone, that limestone is sedimentary rock. It was put down layer upon layer of this very thin sedimentary rock, and in some cases it trapped and killed a lot of animals, that's where you get a lot of fossils and so forth coming from there. So maybe that's something that, I mean, even though that those little animals, I mean, do they actually have a soul? Do they survive like we do? I mean, it's a $100,000 question, but I think between that and just this flow of natural running water, I mean, it just seems to appear over and over again in the stories and the investigations that we have done, that there's always something nearby, underground water, running water, a stream, a lake, or something.
I understand that ley lines could possibly play a significant part in ghosts, hauntings, and spirit communication.
Oh, absolutely. When I was in England, in late spring of this year, we visited a lot of different locations that are right along ley lines. Places like Stonehenge,
right?
Other places that, in some cases, they will connect with other stone circles, or in some cases, some old ancient buildings or cathedrals or mosques or abbeys and things of that nature that seem to, I'm a great, proponent that this actually has something to do with that activity, because if you draw lines and just literally straight lines across the UK, and not only that, around the world, you'll come across a lot of places that seem to be extremely haunted. And there seems to be some sort of, maybe they would call it chi, or some energy that basically is in the earth itself, or maybe the magnetic fields above the earth, that seem to connect these different locations. And it's fascinating. I've read a number of books on it by some authors that really came down to earth and explained how they believe that this happens. And like I said, I truly believe there's something to that.
Other aspects of the paranormal, including UFO sightings, ET encounters, are also being more and more reported near water as well.
Yes, absolutely. I do have a number of books in my library. See, I'm just not a ghost investigator. I really kind of get into a lot of different things that are kind of paranormal, unexplained.
Right.
And UFOs has always been something that always fascinated me as well. There was a lot of UFO sightings here in the Chicagoland area, including ones that were reported. These UFOs reported over O'Hare Airport, some major airport here in Chicago. And that's very close to, in fact, there are rivers that go past within, not that, and there's underground water as well that are very close to O'Hare Airport. And, some of the other very famous sightings, a lot of them don't come to mind right now, but I have read some of these material that, again, they were, when you later research these particular cases, they were very close to running water, if not right next to running water. So again, UFOs, I mean, are they when you're talking about, are they extraterrestrial, or are they simply what it is, an unidentified flying object, or as they call it now, a UAP?
Dale, stand by. You and I have to take our first break. In X Zone Nation, Dale Kaczmarek is our special guest this hour. Ghostresearch.org is his website. And you're listening to the X Zone Radio Show right here on Classic 1220. And we're streaming around the world on www.classic1220.ca. Your hometown radio right here from St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, and around the world. We'll be back on the other side of this very short break as the X Zone continues. Whatever you do, don't go away.
My name is Michael Telstar, Canada's leading mentalist from Toronto, Ontario.
Hi, my name is Splinza, and you're listening to my dad, Rob McConnell, on the X Zone.
This is Psychic Dorothy. from St. Catharines, and you're listening to Rob McConnell.
Hello, my name is Holly Reeves, an astrologer from Astro For You, and you're listening to Canada's #1 paranormal radio show, The X Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Dale Kaczmarek is my special guest this hour, Exonation, www.ghostresearch.org. And before we get back to Paul, I would just like to remind everyone that you're listening to us on Hometown Radio, your hometown radio from St. Catharines, Ontario, Classic 1220. And we're streaming around the world on classic1220.ca. The X-Chronicles newspaper, the newest edition, will be available December the 1st at www.xchronicles.net. Before we went to the break, we were talking about the connection between water and paranormal, Dale. And Chicago is on the shores of Lake Michigan, right? And isn't that part of the Great Lakes Triangle?
It is. That's another interesting phenomenon because, again, we were also kind of talking about ley lines and how they intersect. I mean, these ley lines also do connect with places like the Bermuda Triangle, the Great Lakes Triangle, the Devil's Triangle. There's another one off the coast of Japan.
That's the hoodoo.
And so forth. Yeah. So you have kind of what I call like a double whammy. You have the ley lines, number one, and then you have these bodies of water, which they don't flow like a river, but there are tides, and they come, they wash in, they wash out. So there's a movement of water all the time, and the Chicago area has a lot of different. You got the Chicago River, you got the Illinois River, you got the Des Plaines River, you got small tributaries and so forth that come, and wind its way all the way down to the Mississippi River. So you have these intersecting areas of water, and sometimes you have them also where ley lines intersect too. So you have the natural flow of this running water, and you may have this natural energy, whatever it is, we're not exactly sure of these ley lines that also play a part.
By the way, Dale, I want to congratulate you on the Lifetime Achievement Award for your work in the paranormal field that you recently received. 50 years. Congratulations, my friend.
That was thank you so much. That was a bit of a shocker myself. I was actually at a presentation I was doing in Rockford, Illinois, which is northwest of Chicago, and I was the keynote speaker for this event. And out of the clear blue sky, they called me up to the podium up there in the front of the audience. I go, I'm thinking, well, what's going on? Because it's not my time to talk yet. Right. So I get up there, and all of a sudden they unveil this very nice plaque for the 50-year Lifetime Achievement Award in the paranormal. And they say, you want to make a comment or say something about it. And usually I am not at a loss of words at all. I can talk literally the pants off somebody if I really wanted to. But at that time I was really kind of at a loss of words, and I was a little tearful, believe it or not, to say the least. There were a couple people that were in charge of the event, and they said, well, get off the stage before you make us all start to cry or something. That was a great honor, and it's hanging in my office now. It's something I'm very proud of, and I hope to continue this for many years to come.
Well, that is an award well deserved. I've known you for nearly 30 years, and you're one of the hardest working people when it comes to the investigation into the paranormal that I know. So congratulations again.
Thank you so much, my friend.
What has been the most frightening paranormal event that you yourself was part of?
Well, again, I'll preface this by saying that usually, first of all, I'm not fearful when I go into locations. I research them really well, so I kind of know what to expect. But sometimes the unexpected happens, things that happen that you don't expect. And I can't really say that I've had a frightening experience, but I've had something that has really raised the shackles. Got your hair standing up in the back of your neck, on your arms, and so forth. And this was one that I had had a number of years ago when I was investigating Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in Weston, West Virginia. It's a huge 256,000 square foot building.
Wow.
And we were in an area by some isolation cells where they sometimes put unruly patients. It's kind of like a rubber room, they would call it today.
Okay.
And there had been a report, and this had been told to me. We've been there several times, and everyone told the story the same way, that there was a patient back in time. Her name was Ruth, and she didn't like anybody from the opposite sex. So she would throw her tray, her food, she would cuss, she'd just carry on. And we were only about maybe 30 feet away from where she had been seen a lot by these isolation cells. And then suddenly my left arm felt like had been dipped into ice cold water or had been put into a freezer. I mean, the goosebumps on the one side, the hair standing up on it. I said, take a picture of this. I'm feeling something really, really weird. And I was there with 3 female investigators, so that's very important. They weren't experiencing anything. And so I said, take a picture of this. And, I mean, it's crazy. This whole left side kind of like went ice cold. And then at that point, something literally grabbed a hold of my buttocks. I mean, I felt an ice cold hand, literally, and we got this on videotape on our website at ghostresearch.org. You can actually see that video at Night Shot. And right away I said, well, what's going on here? And the females are saying, we don't feel no draft. There's no draft. The temperature remained the same. And it was right in this doorway to this one cell. I mean, we had an EMF device which really didn't go off, and I was kind of amazed it didn't go off. It just seemed to target me because I was a male rather than a female. And so I said, well, let's just stay here a little bit while longer because maybe something else is going to happen. So we continued doing an EVP session, and we're using an obelisk. We were using it in dictionary mode. In dictionary mode, it allows the spirits to form their own words, putting together vowels and consonants to create words, and then putting those to create sentences. So I just asked a simple question. Do you want us to leave, or do you want me to leave? And one word came out. You. So I thought that was really kind of crazy. It wanted me to leave. So I said, okay, at that time we decided just to move on because a lot of times when we're doing investigations, we seem like in some cases we kind of intrude, so to speak, on a spirit's domain, an area that they kind of, they like or they've been in for a while. So if we feel that is happening, we just move on. And we didn't move on because we were scared. I mean, we would have loved to stay there and continue on the conversation, but we just got this word that said you. Sometimes we'll say, do you want us to leave or do you want us to stay? And sometimes it'll say stay. We've actually had this come through, stay or leave. And if it ever says leave, we just leave because, again, we think we might be in an area that is, that the spirit itself claims or, they feel comfortable with.
Right.
And just kind of move on to some other location.
Why is it that some spirits remain? For example, I've heard over the years many people talk about the Waverly and other asylums that the spirits seem to enjoy the interaction between the living on this side of the veil. One thing I do know about you, Dale, and your organization is you're very respectful. You don't go in there shouting and acting like a bunch of amateurs. You're very professional, and I was wondering if this has something to do with the reason why spirits want to communicate with you because of the respect that you show towards them.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, some of these TV shows, and I'm not going to mention any names,
Okay.
but I get enough hate mail as it is. But some of these TV shows, they provoke. They go in, they literally provoke. They use profanities. They demean the spirit, which is there, and that's their way of trying to elicit a response. We have discovered that if we're talking, say for instance, we are actually communicating with a discarnate entity of some kind.
Right.
That person at one time walked on the face of the earth. Mm-hmm. So it's a surviving personality, if you will. So if we go in and we're just talking and we're giving the spirit a voice, if you will, by using these real-time devices, by asking appropriate questions, trying to see if they have something they want to relay to us, we get a much better response than going in and provoking and so forth. So I think if you talk to the spirit like you would like to be talked to, I think there's a better chance you'll get response and a communication. It
goes right back to respect.
Absolutely, yes.
You mentioned an obelisk. What is that?
An obelisk is a device that was put together by Bill Chappell from Digital Dowsing. He's got a site, digitaldowsing.com. It's a very great site. And he had put together this device that is a real-time device. It has multiple modes in there. The two ones that we seem to use most often is a dictionary mode, which has about 4,300 and some odd words in there, very common to the English language, and then what they call a phonetic mode. The phonetic modes allows the spirits to form their own words, as I mentioned before, putting together vowels and consonants. In the dictionary mode, or in any mode for that matter, you would turn the device on, you would ask a question, and the idea is that the spirits will hear the question and they might pull out the appropriate word to respond. Now, we do get a lot of odd words, but we've had some amazing stuff in the past, especially in the phonetic mode, which I think is more scientific because now you're not using the built-in dictionary. You're allowing the spirits to form their own words. And we've had entire sentences come out of there. In one case, in a hospital, it said literally, "Get out of here," and there was no mistaking what it said. So this is a way to communicate with spirits, getting away from the old EVP sessions where you would ask a question, you'd leave some blank space, you'd ask the question, you leave some blank space, and then later on when you get home, you'd listen to that, and in between, in that blank space, you might hear a word. But to me, that's a one-way communication. That's not a two-way communication.
Dale, I hate to do this, my friend. We've got to take our break. Please stand by. Exonation, Dale Kaczmarek's our guest, ghostresearch.org. You're listening to the X-Zone Radio Show from the broadcast studios of the X-Zone Broadcast Network right here in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. You can always send me an email now. Brand new email address, thanks to our good friends at Classic 1220, which we are very proud to be a part of, not only as broadcasters, friends, but also the Classic 1220 family at X-Zone Radio TV. No, wait a minute, that's X-Zone at classic1220.ca. I'm Rob McConnell, and welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Today on the X-Zone, the Roswell crash of 1947. In July of 1947, something crashed near the small town of Roswell, New Mexico. That something is believed to have been a flying saucer by millions of UFO enthusiasts around the world, headed by nuclear physicist Stanton Friedman. Now, Friedman has never seen any physical evidence of the alien craft or the remains of its alien occupants, but bases his belief on the stories that he has heard from locals and townspeople alike. According to the United States Air Force and other government agencies, the Roswell incident was not a crashed alien ship. Friedman and his followers insist to this very day that the governments of the world are covering up the fact that the aliens are here, and that the denial of the UFO crash at Roswell, New Mexico is proof of this global government cover-up. Join me, Rob McConnell, for another story from the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology when next we meet in the X Zone, the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard.
Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out. Welcome back to that same old place that you laughed about. Well, the names have all changed since you hung around, but those dreams have remained and they've turned around.
Welcome back, everyone. As John Sebastian said in the... I used to love watching... what was that show called? Welcome Back, Kotter. Yeah. That's when TV was really kind of fun to watch. You didn't even mind the commercials way back then. Because I think there were, maybe 2-3 channels if you didn't have cable. Anyway, you're listening to the X Zone Radio Show from the broadcast studios of the X Zone Broadcast Network in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And you're listening to us on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed at classic1220.ca. And my email address is, I'm going to get this right, xzone@classic1220.ca. It's a very unique situation here, X Zone Nation, because 30 years ago, the X Zone actually started our radio journey from the studios of 1220. Back then it was 1220 CHSC. They were on Queenston Street here in St. Catharines. And over the 30 years, we traveled as most people do, going from one station to the next, one market to the bigger market to the bigger market, and then you get onto the different networks. And here we are, 30 years later, back here home in St. Catharines, Ontario, back on 1220. That used to be CHSC 1220, but is now Classic 1220 on Lake Street, just across the street from Montebello Park. My guest is Dale Kaczmarek is with us. He has just received a 50-year Lifetime Achievement Award for his great work in the paranormal. Their website, ghostresearch.org. What has been the most significant investigative evidence that has been found when it comes to proving that ghosts are real?
Well, first of all, congratulations on 30 years. Here's to another 30 years.
Okay, thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. But you know what? My 30 years it seems like it just happened so fast. Over those 30 years, I've had the opportunity and privilege of doing over 4,500 individual interviews.
Wow.
Yeah, and many with you, and it's nice that even after all these years, you and I can sit down and talk, and there's been a learning curve, like you were talking about before, the new equipment that you're being able to use. You went from analog cassettes to digital when it comes to the EVPs, as well as your video equipment has changed. So I believe that you, as the person in charge of ghostresearch.org, are going to be one of the organizations that finally get the evidence that so many people who are not in tune with what the paranormal investigation community is doing, but John Q. Public will be able to say, I get it now, and they won't be able to deny it anymore.
That would be great. That's what I'm really hoping for. We had conducted an investigation a few weeks ago, actually, in a place called the Two Brothers Roundhouse in Aurora, Illinois, and we actually brought along there was a woman who was doing a story on me, and she wanted to tag along, and she was from WBBM Radio, News Talk 78, which is really big out here.
It is, yeah.
It's a big, like, news, AM. They also do it on FM as well. And she wanted to come along with her friend who was going to be, shooting some film out there as well. And, we can never tell what's going to go on during an investigation. We can never tell that if people tag along, you're going to hear anything or see anything.
Yeah.
But in this case, we were in the oldest section of the building, and it was completely to us. I mean, there was no other people there. We literally heard and recorded some voices in the background that were audible. These were disembodied voices. Also some footsteps, and it sounded like a couple of times crashes, as though somebody had just dropped a whole 10 or 12 dinner plates on the ground. And it really kind of shook us up because we all looked in the same direction. And we had the recorders going. We had our digital recorders. We also had our camcorders going. We had Sony night shot cameras. But in between all of this, we were looking at an area that was a kind of like you would call it like a dining room, and they had a bar right there, like a cozy bar. And three of us, on at least more than one occasion, saw a shadowy figure behind the bar. In fact, the woman from WBBM saw it as well. And so I go, that's kind of cool, because now she can say that she actually saw and heard something that's unexplainable in real time. As you mentioned, with some really good evidence I've gotten to explain the paranormal. I think that was pretty cool, right? What happened there. We've had other times that we have set up cameras in a resort up in Zion, Illinois, which is near the Wisconsin border, and this was a corridor, which is really kind of off limits to anybody except people that were part of the staff. We had special permission to go anywhere in the building, so we had set up two night shot cameras, literally back to back, piggyback, shooting down one side and down the other side. We left them there. We went someplace else. When we came back later, and we retrieved that data. We reviewed it the next couple of days. I was amazed to see a semi-transparent figure of a shadow that came out of nowhere in the middle of the hallway, which is a good maybe 30 feet away from the night shot camera. Very clear, that actually comes out of nowhere. You can see it kind of pause momentarily on the door jamb going into the room, and then it just flutters away. And I'm going like, wow, what was that? Because there had been so many things that had happened in this building in the past. There had been a gentleman who had died on the treadmill in the exercise room.
Holy cow.
There had been a person that had committed suicide on the beach. There was one of the, I can't mention the room number because they told me not to,
of course,
one of the rooms where something happened up there. There was some untimely death. So I think a lot of this, in fact, the exercise room was just literally feet away from where the shadow came out of, like maybe the exercise room into the hallway where we had the cameras, and then kind of stopped momentarily and passed into the other room. And I go, that was really, really extraordinary. When you see moving shadow figures, I mean, you probably have seen pictures of shadow people on the internet. I have some on my website. It's one thing to see them and then photograph them, or not see them and photograph them, but to actually capture a moving shadow figure, that's really unexplainable.
What did the lady from the media say that was there covering it up with her cameraman?
Well, she actually she was doing a Zoom session interview with me, and then she kind of she took part of that and then incorporated with the investigation that she did, and she put it all together, and she posted that whole segment on there. She just said that she saw something that she couldn't explain, and there was nothing there. I mean, we had no no lights. I mean, this was down where no cars could have went past and created a shadow. We had nobody, in that area with any type of flashlight or anything like that. It was just a kind of a semi-darkened area that you could barely see with the naked eye. Unfortunately, the camera was not facing in that direction. That seems to be, I think spirits in some way, they know that we're trying to capture them on video or audio, and they purposely do things, which aggravates me, where the camera's not facing them. So we can't sometimes get that tremendous video that we had. We did shoot some full spectrum images over there. We shot some regular digital film in that area, and it's kind of inconclusive that anything was actually caught on the camera, because it may have been so short-lived, only there for maybe a few seconds. By the time you get your camera up and you snap it, the thing's already gone.
It seems that these shadow people are something relatively new within the paranormal community. Are they an evolutionary jump when it comes to ghosts and spirits?
Well, they are relatively new. I mean, it only goes back, I would say, maybe 10 or 15 years at most, maybe not even quite that long. In fact, my very good friend, Rosemary Ellen Guiley.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you've had on the show.
Yes, we have, yeah.
We worked together for more than 35 years, and she was a big proponent also of shadow images. Some people, for some reason, have the connotation that shadow images are something negative.
Yeah.
And I don't believe so. I believe that in some cases, that is how they just simply wish to appear. Sometimes they might have more energy. They might show up as a full-bodied apparition. Sometimes they show up as a shadow. Sometimes as a fog or a mist. Sometimes as a strange light. I think it has a lot to do with the energies of the spirit and how they are able to manifest themselves to people to be able to be seen, and in some cases photographed. So I don't think that they're negative. I think, again, I've seen moving shadow figures several times. In Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, for instance, we saw some, and again, the camera was facing in the wrong direction. So, I mean, it got to the point now we use multiple cameras, and we face them in all different directions, and we try to capture these things that, for some reason, see the camera. I think they got to be intelligent.
Yeah, I was just thinking
the camera,
that.
and they get on the other side of the camera like, ha, I'm over here now.
You and I have to take our final break for this hour, my friend. Please stand by. And Exonation, our guest this hour is Dale Kaczmarek. Website, ghostresearch.org. And once again, Dale just received a 50-year Lifetime Achievement Award for his work in the paranormal field. And I can tell you from firsthand experience that this gentleman and his crew are the real McCoy. So if you have a problem and you're being haunted and you need to connect with someone who could help you, and if they can't, they will certainly turn you in the right direction, visit www.ghostresearch.org. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. This is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard Monday through Friday from 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern, right here. Where, you say? St. Catharines, Ontario, on the shores of Lake Ontario, between Hamilton and Niagara Falls, on Classic 1220, www.classic1220.ca.
But those dreams have remained and they've turned around.
Merry Christmas, Rob O'Connell and crew. What a fine outfit you've got there. This is Daryl Sims, the Alien Hunter, here in Houston, in the national state of Texas. My website is operationaliendna.com or thealienhunter.org, and you're welcome to visit us there. I just want to say that, Rob, you've done an outstanding job, and we're just 100% behind you. God bless all of you, and Merry Christmas to everybody. And Happy New Year. This is Alien Hunter signing off. Daryl Spence.
All out the holly, turn on the brightest string of lights we've ever seen. Spice up the fruitcake.
not a free man, but neither am I chained. And I am not a wise man, but neither am I rearranged. I am not a new man, but neither am I old. I am not a rich man.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone, and you're listening to the X Zone radio show being from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario on Classic 1220, streaming at www.classic1220.ca. Dale Kaczmarek's my special guest this hour. Dale is located in Oak Lawn, Illinois, and their website, www.ghostresearch.org. Dale, you and I were talking briefly before about how using respectful tones and speaking to the spirits in a very respectful manner, does that help you get the EVPs that you need?
It betters the chance of getting that because, again, you're talking to somebody or someone who hasn't totally passed over for whatever reason, untimely death or whatever the case may be. And, they, in some cases, want to get a message across. Sometimes they, couldn't get a message across. And we've gotten some amazing stuff at places where people have died, airplane crashes, Civil War battlefields, places like that, where their life was taken so quickly that they never had a chance to say goodbye. And this is what I believe is one way that we kind of open up the door for them to allow them to get a message across. And in some cases, we don't hear anymore from that particular spirit. And we try to go back to that same site on the battlefield where we had stuff in the past, and we just don't get that kind of responses anymore. Maybe that's all they wanted to do was get a message across. So I think in our tone, I think not only it's them hearing our tone, but it's the inflection of our voices and the energy we produce if we're provoking on one side or we're talking respectfully. I think there's a distinct difference in the energy that comes out, because I believe, and there are some other EVPers that also believe that, many of the EVPs that people capture are within a few seconds after somebody has asked a question. And they believe, as I do, that the energy we expel to the environment, if you will, is somehow captured very quickly and can be used and kind of thrown back at us with an EVP. So I believe that, these... Go ahead. These real-time devices that we use sometimes also incorporate that as well, because now we're able to hear it in real time, and then we ask a question, we get a response, and now we can build upon that to start a conversation, if you will. So that's better than simply in the past asking a question and leaving some blank space, etc. So this is not like a one-way communication anymore. It's like it's being able to converse and do a conversation. We sometimes will do what's called a burst EVP session. We'll record with a digital recorder for maybe a minute or 2 minutes, and then quickly play that back here in real time. And that would be like if people don't have a real-time device. This is what you could do. You could do like a 1 minute session, then play it back, and then you would hear your question, and then you would hear if there was a response. And then you could start a second session and begin to build on a conversation. And so I often suggest that to people who don't have the money to buy some of these devices, which in some cases are kind of expensive, but they are produced commercially by a lot of very reputable ghost sites on the internet.
Something that I've learned over the many years doing this show, Dale, is that people like yourself, your group, and other what I consider to be credible paranormal investigation teams are responsible for keeping history alive. You're also historians, and you bring the history, the stories about the location where you're doing your investigation, you keep it alive. And I don't know if John Q. Public realizes the value, besides the paranormal investigation that you people do, but also the historic value and how you keep it alive.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said from day one that history and hauntings go hand in hand. You have to know the history of location to see what may have precipitated a ghost story. Was there an untimely death? Was there a murder? Was there an Indian massacre? Was there a Civil War site? Was there, some type of other untimely death? So by going in and researching the history of a location before you actually investigate it, you have a pretty good idea then what happened there. And what we do is when we produce our report, which eventually goes on our website, so that all people can go on and click on the website, anything we've done in the past, they will get a history lesson. Like you said, there's one of the first things after the location and where it's at, there's a whole couple, 3 or 4 paragraphs, can be longer, that just says history before we even get into the hauntings of what took place, what transpired, in the whole history of that location. And then we get later on, we get into the hauntings, and then we go into the personal experiences, and then we get into evidence. So it kind of lays out very nicely, kind of how we do our investigations. And there are text files on my website that people can use sort of for their own templates, more or less, of how to conduct a very successful investigation. And if people kind of follow those simple guidelines that are also in my book on ghost hunting techniques, you have a much better chance of communicating with something.
Chicago is a very crime-riddled city. Have you done an investigation at the location of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre?
We haven't actually, only because it's on a private little swath of land right now. Before they put up the fence and before they had the senior center, it was more accessible to the public.
I see.
But it's places like that, and there was obviously 7 members of the Bugs Moran gang shot down very viciously, and there had been residual activity out there. People have been hearing gunshots, been hearing machine gun fire, been hearing sobbing and moaning sounds coming from the area. Dogs react very strangely going past there. Even canine patrols from the Chicago Police Department, which are highly trained animals, they will kind of pull back and they'll whine. They'll react to something, and animals are very sensitive to that. So that area, even though it happened back in 1929, has some residual activity, I believe, that's still there on the site. It's very easy to figure out the site because it's on the south end of a housing project at 2122 North Clark. There's 5 trees like the 5 spots of a playing card. That center tree is where the north wall would have stood. That's where they were lined up. And places like that, and there are many in Chicago of untimely deaths, sometimes hold on to what we call place memories.
During your investigations, have you ever come across any people who deliberately tried to deceive you into believing that there was a paranormal event going on?
Actually, no. I've never actually had somebody do that, and there's really no reason for that. There's nothing they would gain from that except to try to pull the wool over our eyes to see if we can determine if it's real or hoaxed. But I think in most cases what happens is when people have experiences, they don't know what to do with them. They misinterpret what's happening. They jump to conclusions. So they're not faking it. They simply just don't know what's there. And what we try to do is we go there and we try to determine if there's something there, we can communicate with it. And in some cases, if people wanted to move on, we do work with psychics and people that claim that they can coax the spirit to move on to the other side by simply convincing them that they have died. They don't belong in this realm.
What are some of the common misconceptions people have about paranormal investigations, Dale?
Well, the most common is obviously when people watch these TV shows, they think that that's how a paranormal investigation is supposed to be run. Actually, in some cases, paranormal investigations can be pretty boring.
Yeah.
You might sit there for hours sometimes and not get anything. Then you have to go through and review hours of videotape and audio tape to see if there's anything there. So it can be fun to do that, and very entertaining, and sometimes eerie and creepy in some cases. But then comes the review, the evidence that you have to go through. So I think that's what most people don't realize. It takes a lot of time to go through that stuff to see if you even got anything when you were investigating.
What steps do you take to ensure the safety and well-being of everyone involved in a paranormal investigation?
Well, first of all, we always work in teams of two. We don't let anybody go anywhere by themselves. Even if they have to go to the washroom, we have somebody go with them and stand by the door, because in some cases, we're in buildings that are very large. If you go by yourself, you might fall on a set of stairs. You might be missing for hours and hours, be laying there, we don't know where you're at. So we also employ, every group has two-way radios. So if anything happens, they can also call back to the command center, to one of us, and we can figure out where they're at. We also make sure that we have a well laid out plan of where we're going to go, and people are going to be in certain areas, so we know where these people are pretty much to begin with, and they don't wander off too much. So again, it's also making sure people have flashlights. They take care to watching where they step and they walk. It's just simple safety things, and also the teams of two also help, because you have an extra set of eyes and ears in case something does happen. It's not just one person seeing it; maybe both people would see it, because you have a partner with you.
Dale, as always, whenever you're with us, time goes by so fast. Quickly, let our listeners know how they can find out more about you and where they can buy your books.
Sure. You can find all the books available at www.ghostresearch.org. If you buy them from me rather than on Amazon, you can get an autographed copy, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
You can also find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook page for my timeline, and also for the Ghost Research Society. You can also Google that. Not Google. You can search for there on Facebook and find me there as well.
Again, my friend, thanks very much for joining us. Please don't be a stranger, because you know what? I believe that each and every one of us hold a piece of this jigsaw puzzle that we call the paranormal in our pockets. And it's only by communicating and getting around that big table, putting our pieces on the table and working at, completing the puzzle together, that one day we will solve this very interesting puzzle. Thanks very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Exonation, I'll be back tomorrow night at 11 o'clock as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. So, until then, my friends, always remember to keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. You're listening to the X-Zone Radio Show on Classic 1220, streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. I'm Rob McConnell. Good night.